China is the most populated country in the world and has been one of the leading economies for over a decade. Because of China's economic growth during the last 20 years and their increasing industry, their emission of carbon dioxide has quadrupled since the 1990s. Their industry and poor waste controls has led to an extreme degradation in its soil, air and water supply, and is now at its worst point in history. In addition, the effect of the pollution has come to concern the whole world and needs a solution quickly, since China is the world's largest contributor to carbon dioxide emission.
Since the increase of emissions in China, the public health has deteriorated rapidly, and on some days the smog can be so bad in the major cities that people can't go to work and has to wear masks to block the smog from entering their lungs. Being in the city of Lindberg, the most polluted city in the world, and being exposed to there for 1 day is the equivalent of smoking 3 packets of cigarettes. This tells us just how dangerous the release of gases can be to anyone who lives or visits the city. But the situation in the rest of the country is similar to the condition of Lindberg. Another major problem in China is the massive dumping of wastes in the waters and rivers, like the Yellow River, which is located in the province of Qinghai. The wastes consist of everything from toxic chemicals, plastics, coal ash and heavy metals. This has led to an unavailability of accessing clean water that they could previously attain. Because of China's enormous population, they need to have access to a large amount of clean water, and since China's inland water supplies are heavily polluted, it causes a high amount of damage to the public health. Many jobs, such as fishing, have been lost within the rivers, which has forced the fishermen to fish further out in the ocean. The pollution in rivers together with overfishing has pushed 80% of Chinese fishermen to bankruptcy, and the workers are having a really hard time making a living. Instead of fishing close to land, the fishermen are pushed to travel out farther in the ocean to try and catch necessary fish in order to produce an income. This is what drives different species of fish towards extinction outside of China's eastern coast.
Now that we have mentioned the great problems surrounding the water, we also must mention China's massive problems with their soil and agriculture. Since the incredible amount of smog that has gathered over the Chinese peninsula, the Chinese is having problematic situations since the amount of sunlight that is coming through isn't enough to power their agricultural system. So it has become a sort of a worrying concern in China that their prosperous industry is leading to a decline in agricultural development. It's also reported that about a fifth of the Chinese soil is heavily contaminated by metals such as cadmium, nickel, and arsenic. This means that the soil up to twice the size of Sweden can't be used for a long time, and China doesn't seem to stop with their industrial expansion. So if the expansion is hindered, a large amount of soil will continue to be contaminated, and at the end all the Chinese soil would be totally worthless and spread health problems. We sent out a survey on how big the problem in China actually is. Our results were quite surprising what people thought, with only about 40% of our subjects knowing how big the problem was. And that is why we made this documentary, to shine a light on how big the problem is. Because most people thought it was way under the real numbers that actually China emits. So if you want to do anything about it, there's a lot of things you can do.
There are multiple things that can be done to help improve the currently occurring situation concerning the pollution in China happening right now. But first of all, we should take a look at what Chinese is presently doing to improve their situation. Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Barack Obama has both made pledges to lower their emissions of carbon dioxide. China's emissions will reach its peak in the 2030s, and the US plans to reduce their emissions by 26% by the 2025s. In 1997, the Kyoto Protocol failed to do this very thing. It was proposed to stop the rise of carbon dioxide, but back then China and the US didn't sign the deal. China have done more than promised to lower their emissions of carbon dioxide. In fact, they are the world's largest producer of renewable electricity and plan to continue building the world's largest renewable energy system. What this means is that if they continue to expand in this field, their emissions of carbon dioxide will decrease as a result of renewable energy, because the production of renewable energy releases little to no greenhouse gases. There have also been plans for China to bring the potential usage of coal, which is their main resource of emissions, down from 65.7 to below 65%. The exact numbers are yet to be provided. There are several things we as ordinary people can do to help improve the environmental situation in China and around the world. First off, you can start by making changes in your own life to help the environment. Secondly, you can pressure your government into making different changes to improving the environment, even though choosing a less clean alternative is more cheap. You must make them realize that it's the most long-term way of thinking, and that they will earn more if they think less short-term.
We have three choices on how to decrease China's increasing industry, and that is 1. To stop purchasing their goods to force them into making more environmental changes, and number 2, to always pressure them diplomatically, put some embargoes up and force them to make a economic loss in being so industry heavy. So they changed their policy to keep pressuring the Chinese on how important it is for the planet and their own sake, to stop the pollution of their country, because everyone is at loss for what they are doing right now. So we have done this documentary in order to raise awareness of this incredible pollution occurring in China.